And he's here now.
You, doesn't it? We're just
so
watching that.
The first scene of the first one, because episode 1 went out this Tuesday, which you can still see on demand, of course, by the way, if you want to catch up with us after our chat here. It's really chilling. I mean, you have a child that disappears from the car seat, a little boy screaming because his father's just disappeared by the side of him. I mean, I suppose the first question's got to be, where the hell did they go?
Yeah, and that's the central... What's important about the programme was we're not necessarily going to answer that. We're not going to... It's not a whodunit. It's a show about the impact of sudden loss on a community and on individuals. I think when Damon Lindelof did Lost, he got a lot of flack for not answering certain questions, but he's been very upfront this time and said, we're not going to answer. It's not a whodunit or a whydunit. It's more about the emotional impact on a community of sudden loss.
It was written just after 9/11, wasn't it?
Well, that's something that I've said. It comes from an original novel by a man called Tom Perrotta, which I think came out in around about 2014, around about 2009. I think there was something that happened in that novelist's personal life. I think he experienced sudden loss. He wrote the book and he said to me that I realised that sudden loss had prompted me to write this book. But I think, obviously with 9/11, something like that, I think that had a great effect on American culture and literature. There was a kind of number of things written. I think it's about that, really. Yeah.
So the series begins 3 years after this disappearance of 2% of the world's population. So who are you, and how do you come into this story?
I'm an Episcopalian reverend for the town of Mapleton.
Yeah.
Had a very successful congregation and a good life, and when this thing happens, there's obviously this debate about whether this is the rapture as predicted by the Bible, but people turn against God because they, as far as a lot of people have lived a God-fearing life and they've lost their children or their partners.
This is cruel, this is unfair, how could he let this happen?
He loses his congregation. And also, as a dramatic character, a reverend who, has, as far as he's concerned, has worked for God all his life and is not taken, that creates problems for him. So he becomes what we call a rapture denier. He said, this is not an act of God.
It's interesting because he also gets beaten up for saying, you know, maybe those people were not as innocent as we are led to believe. Maybe there was something about them.
That's right. In an effort to prove that it wasn't an act of God, he points out that murderers and thieves, paedophiles, were also taken, and he says God would not take those. But what he also does is he points out perhaps the skeletons in the closets of people who have, maybe somebody was taken who was having an affair, and he confronts people with this in an effort to prove that it wasn't God's will.
We've actually got a clip of that moment here.